I'm Deb Welsh with Chip Franklin.
Make no mistake, we will fight this spill with everything we've got for as long as it takes. We will make BP pay for the damage their company has caused. And we will do whatever is necessary to help the Gulf Coast and its people recover from this tragedy.
Couple things there, but let's join right now with Congressman Brian Bilbray. Congressman, first of all, good morning. Thanks for being with us. But it's not a spill, it's a leak, not to be too technical. And, you know, there's a lot of things about that speech yesterday that were weird and wrong and from style to substance. What was your take?
Yeah, I was interested. My wife always chastised me for using the word got just the way the president, instead of saying we will for everything we have. But that's picking. Look, you're talking about a president who who ran on the campaign of hope, and people, I think, just have created this real letdown by just thinking that somehow a gentleman from Chicago is going to come to Washington and the whole world is going to be changed just by a wave of a wand. I think Obama's in an impossible task, even if he did a great job, just because too many people just thought that somehow he could create miracles. You
know, you're old enough to remember Ham Jordan and that crew when they came to D.C. They came up from the Georgia system, similar to Chicago, where, you know, they got stuff done in behind closed doors and everybody kowtowed. This is, I have on tape this morning both, interestingly, Chris Matthews, Keith Olbermann, and Howard Feynman criticizing him. And to give Matthews credit, even Matthews says, where does he get the power to tell them how to set up their money? Where does he get that power? Listen to this, will you, Congressman? We're going to have it for you in just a second here. But it's an interesting approach. No, I don't have the sound. I'll have it for you in just a second.
Chris, the thing that really gets to me is this. Look, any one of us that have ever been managers, I was a young mayor. I knew what a crisis was. We had sewage flowing in. Bureaucrats said there could be nothing done. The test of real leadership is not when everything's going right, but when things go wrong, your playbook runs out, and you have to call it audible. And the fact is, this president doesn't know how to call it audible. And instead of saying, okay, Louisiana, Alabama, you can build berms. I don't give a damn what the Army Corps says. I'm the boss. I'll waive those rules, and I'll take the responsibility. He should say, look, labor unions, I know you want to protect, your labor jobs, but we're going to waive the Jones Act to allow foreign ships that can suck up this oil in. Preserving the environment is more important than the backroom deals I made with you over union rules, and the president can waive that. But then to sit there and say that, I'm going to ignore the law, when in fact he won't even do the procedural things he can do under the regulations, it just really kind of boggles me. But look, Chip, he's never done it. He's learning while he's doing. When the American people elected, less than a one-term senator, they knew they were electing somebody without experience, and they should have expected this type of shortfall when the crisis comes. He's going to have to learn by doing. That's just a fact of life.
Well, we are a country, I hate to say it, based more now on style than substance, and that's unfortunate because, as you mentioned before, when you audible, you're a golfer, right?
No, I have enough prices between surfing and sailing and horse.
Bobby Jones once said there's a difference between golf and tournament golf. It's night and day. Tournament golf is when the heat is on, the pressure's up. This is an audible, as you mentioned before.
I'm a football player, Chip.
All right, this is a 2 minute. This is a 2 minute drill. This is when the defense doesn't look like it normally does. Everything's changing, and I think the frustrating thing that bothers me the most is that he doesn't understand the need for profit. For the economic repercussions for this, which have long-term implications, not only for our economy, but for our security as a nation. And you look at any nation in the world that suffers from terrorism, that suffers from a poor environment. They're poor nations. They're look at the Soviet Union in the final days, and look at
the Soviet Union put out more pollution just out of their natural gas leaks than the rest of the world combined when it comes to that kind of leak. I mean, government maybe there's one lesson here that we ought to learn. And that is, this teaches everybody, even those who devoutly believe in government, that there are limits to government. There's a need for the expertise of the private sector to work properly, and the government can't just come and take over everything and think it's going to operate. This is living proof right in front of it. Even this president can't do it.
Listen to Chris Matthews and Keith Olbermann just a second here, if you would, Congressman. This is them from last night on MSNBC, of all places.
Was that what was needed tonight? Didn't he shoot really low?
Well, I think there was one bit of news there, and I don't know whether it's optimistic beyond belief, which is in the coming days and weeks, these efforts should capture up to 90% of the oil leaking out of the well. Well, that's the first I've heard of that. In coming days, we're going to have this thing capped. We're going to effectively solve the problem. Secondly, he never mentioned what power he has as his chief executive of the country to make them understand they need to put this escrow account in third-party hands. Is he going to litigate? Is he going to file an amicus brief with the class action suit and wait 7 years for this to happen, or is he really?
And that's the one thing that I heard, Congressman, that I thought to myself, where does he? That's a legislative thing. That's what you guys do. He can't come out and say that BP has to take this money from their profits and set it aside for. There's already a law that limits that. I mean, if BP wants to do it, great. But unless you go to court or somehow Congress passes some legislation that's retroactive, what was he talking about?
I think he's talking about trying to reassure people that he can still create the miracles that they thought they were electing him for. And I think, Chip, there's a bigger story here with all the talking heads last night, and that is those who were the true believers, people that really, really thought this guy could do things that nobody else could in the history of the country, literally are the ones who were the first to hang him up because somehow they think they've been betrayed, that their faith in hope, has been broken. And I think it's an education lesson to all of us that I don't care if it's Republican or Democrat, you darn well got to remember that the people in office are just people in office. And just because they have a government title in front of their name or behind their name doesn't mean they're any more wonderful than the person who goes to work every day and earns an honest living in the private sector.
I want to hear my president say, look, we're doing everything we can to get this stopped. That's number one priority. Not pointing fingers right now. I'm not going to point fingers at Ken Salazar or minerals or
Chip, he can't say that. He hasn't waived the Jones Act to bring in all those.
By the way, Congressman, let me tell our listeners, the Jones Act, the 1920 Act, which prevents foreign vessels in our waters, designed to protect, not necessarily back then union, but now today interpreted union workers from competing with non-union foreign workers in waters off our shores. It was waived during Katrina. President Bush waived it, but this president, has he commented on it at all? Has anybody in the administration even commented on the Jones Act?
No. What happens is the people are saying, we've got these ships, we can bring them here, but we can't legally allow them to operate within your federal waters. That issue came down, and you also heard about the frustration of the governor, Jindal, and the rest of the governors about having to wait so long to be able to build berms to keep the oil off their islands. Well, that was, you do those waivers. That's what the executive is supposed to use their discretion to make the best call. And you're right. If things don't work out, the president takes the heat. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. President, but you'll take the heat for not doing things. Bureaucracy just has this habit of thinking that inaction is the safest mode, and I think that we just got to start turning that around.
Well, Bobby Jindal, he went on his own yesterday and just started dropping those sandbags offshore. He said, I can't wait any longer.
Absolutely, and that's where leadership shows. And he'll say, Mr. President, the Army Corps can come in and draw me up before court, and you can talk about the regulation. I'll talk about protecting my state.
I don't know. I tell you. So what are you hearing, Congressman, about when this thing could be plugged?
It's worse than what we're hearing. When you have experts, and let me tell you something, one guy who knows a lot about the oil industry and everything else, Boone Pickens, he says, if you hear August, you better plan on mid-August, you better plan on mid-September. And that scares me to death, the fact that somebody with the expertise, the background, the understanding of a Mr. Pickens is already willing to publicly say that. And, he's been right on things like why aren't we using more natural gas? Why don't we make it legal for homes to fill your car with natural gas rather than always playing this other games? I think it's going to be a lot worse than anybody predicts. And I think that one of the things that came out with this, they keep saying, why is the estimate so low? I think when we're all done, is the fact is this is a bigger oil reserve, a much more productive well than anybody ever dreamed. And I have a feeling that if we can get this out of control, in control, they finally get into this thing, there's going to be some real benefits. But the damage now is just so huge. And who would ever think we'd live to see the day that Halliburton would be made to look good as opposed to somebody else? Because BP is making Halliburton look good, because that all we have is that Halliburton warned them that they had to put 21 braces in there, and they only put about 7 or 9.
How about that, huh? Congressman, thank you for taking the time to join us, as always. And, I'm hoping, like you and others, that, somehow somebody at BP with the bright minds there, and there are some bright people there, can come up with a solution before this situation gets even worse. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Again, Congressman Brian Bilbray, nice enough to join us here on AM 600 Kogo, San Diego's news and talk station. Oh, man, that's frustrating.